Like what kind of stands out like a female athlete that they lack? So I've been working with, I've worked with a couple. So I've worked with East Freo women's side.
Yep.
And then I've worked over with waist. Oh, sorry. Yeah, waist. I was going to say sassy. Waist hockey.
No.
Waist hockey and the women's. And then kind of the difference between the two was obviously training age. The waist girls, they've been through a system. But kind of looking at, let's say for a squat, the waist girls kind of have really good control through the trunk. And they've been looking at girls who can't even do a bodyweight squat with their shoulders going one way and the hips going out the other. Like they had no trunk kind of awareness. Do you see similarities there as well?
100%. Like you see girls trying to change direction and sometimes it's like, I just want to cover my eyes. I don't want to see that. Like because they have no trunk control or they're all shifting and then their whole weight's going over to one side and then they don't like, and then to change direction, go the other way, then they have to drag and lag all the way behind. And you're just like, just pivot step, like, shuffle your body weight so it's already going the direction you want to go. And they're like, oh, that's amazing. And I'm like, how's nobody ever taught you how to move? And again, it's all that trunk control, or you see people jumping and landing and they just like land like they're a ton of bricks and you're like, you're going to hurt yourself if you fall like that. Well, I saw one girl, like she landed like stiff-legged and I'm like, what? What are you doing?
That's kind of weird.
I know, it was scary. So that's why there's such a big emphasis on it.
It's actually scary because how did that, like, what kind of...
How did they get that far?
Yeah.
Or even like technique-wise, like kicking, like people like lean back on it or like just have really funny ball drops and you're like, how did you get to this point, like with that skill component? But I think it literally is just because either one, like I think girls seem to pick, some girls, not all, seem to pick which sport they want to play like really late, particularly in footy. Like they come to footy really, really late, so they don't have that motor control, fine motor control patterns set up, or then they just have no, like you're saying, body awareness. Like I was talking to one of my teammates the other day who used to do gymnastics and she got hit at training by one of our strongest girls. And I was like, oh, most people just fall like a pancake when that happens. And like she held herself really well. Like her legs went out from underneath her, but she like was quite calm and landed quite controlled. And I was like, do you think that's because of like gymnastics? Obviously you have to tumble and stuff. She's like, absolutely. Because how often, like I'm sure it happens in men's footies too, like people get their legs taken out and they're gone because they just don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Proprioceptively, they have no idea what's going on around them. And I think that's a major issue in women's sport, particularly, your contact sports, but like in your hockey and stuff as well. People just don't know how to move effectively, I don't think.
I think maybe as well in this kind of society or kind of our kind of generation maybe didn't start early enough. Like girls now who are like kind of, 8, 9, starting sport a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe would have been like our age group, girls would have kind of played sport
then
later and then and maybe come back later.
Yep.
Kind of missed a good period. But you're
100%.
right, gymnastics is big because you got lots of different movements, varied. You got you do your landings, that sort of stuff. I like gymnastics because of that. And also martial arts I think is really, really good. I did karate. Well, my brother and sister, we all did karate when we were young. And we did however many years was that. But it was all like everything we would do would be like we're doing like squat iso holds and holding for like 5 minutes, or we're doing like push-ups, sit-ups, different kind of movements, learning to balance one leg and kick. And
at least be able to hold your own body weight, let alone extra weight. But I think a lot of girls just haven't ever been exposed to that, or there's still a lot of like that fear around being in the gym. Like that's something we're trying to work on at the moment at Ludus because obviously we have a lot of males in the gym. There's not a lot of females. Trying to make it a little bit more like female friendly, I suppose, because it is sometimes a confronting space for some people, male or female, because when you see people, lifting heavy weights and stuff like that, you can be like, oh my God, I can't do that. And then there's that whole internal fear of being like, oh, I'm a girl, should I even be lifting? Which is something that I hate, but it's a, pretty common kind of stereotype. So that's that, that wall that we probably got to try and break down, which I think is a major issue for female sport, because then, like how many girls do you see at, primary school, high school, they just pull out when it's PE class because like, oh, embarrassed or whatever. And I'm like, it's something that definitely needs to change, because then when girls get to, when they do want to come back and play sport, it's like, well, you got to start from like when stuff you should have done when you're 12 because they've either missed it or just never done it.
How do you change it though? Just generations.
I think it's just society in general would probably have to change, because I think there's, as much as we say we're getting better, like clearly there's still a big, difference between men and women, like equality in sport.
Yep.
I think that's pretty clear for everybody to see. So that is probably the first thing that needs to change there. And then I suppose just encouraging girls, like I would hate to see stuff just become so either male or female. I think that's silly. Like I think like I played Auskick and we played with the boys and it was like I think that's made me a better footballer because of that. But I mean, I suppose if that's kind of what you have to do to get more girls into the gym, which I don't think is ideal, but it's like, you know, a bit of a catch-22. If you need to get them in there more so they can move better, then either change the environment that they're in, like take it out of like a gym setting, or make it a little bit more specific to them. So if that does mean run all girl and all boy kind of classes, but with a little bit of mix, I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting that you said that playing with boys, Auskick made you better.
I think so, because they move different. So then I kind of learnt how they played and stuff like that. And I was really lucky. The people that I had coaching me as a kid like never treated me any differently, which is really good. But I just think because like obviously they hit a bit harder like, when you can get to that point where you can tackle or whatnot. You know, I think the girls learn stuff a bit faster. I don't know, but it was cool because you got to experience like growing up and then in that sort of environment, never getting treated like, oh, you're a girl. Like it probably gave me a little bit more, I suppose, a little bit of confidence in what I was doing. And I just think, the way that they move, the way that they kick, the way that they jump, tackle, whatever is pretty different to like if it was just an all girls Auskick, I think. I mean, that's no science at all, but.
Yeah, because if you're playing, because it'd be a bit of a kind of movement gap and there'd be a skill gap, but then it won't be that big.
No, and you couldn't, and like,
issue.
you know, and I played till like under 13. So at that point, you know, they don't have too much of that big testosterone. Like, I'm a boy, like, you know, there wasn't too much of that.
Yeah.
So it was purely just a skill thing. And like, because we learnt at the same sort of rate, then it was fine. Like, there was no gap or anything. Yeah. And me personally, I was like, oh, well, I want to show the boys that I'm just as good as them. So you kind of work a little bit harder. It's probably where all that little internal me like, oh no, I just got to work hard probably came from way back when I was 5 years old. But yeah, I think, no science behind it, but a lot of the girls that I've grown up with that I know have played with the boys, that have grown up and played like Auskick with the boys, I think maybe not so much now, but definitely when we were playing like state footy and stuff, you could definitely tell the difference between the ones that have played footy since our kids are the boys to the ones that either started late or just played in all girls, just because of the way that they learn and I think got coached maybe differently as well. So interesting. Makes sense. It doesn't have to be a science point. It just makes a bit of a what are they? Just not theory. It's interesting because I feel like they could, if you get the girls into the gym when they're younger, for the guys. Yeah, it's just those fundamental movements. Hey, like you learn them early, then you can pretty much do anything whenever. But if you start learning them when you're 17, 18, I think it's way too late. Which is what the boys luckily get access to. Like they have access to the gym and stuff a little bit earlier. Obviously, like when your development programs and your cults or whatever, you guys at least get to use the gym. I don't think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find any of the girls that have used the gym before they're 17, 18. That's true. Where do you see how do you see it kind of like, do you see that kind of coming into high schools, maybe like an American setup? Yeah, I think so. Like I know a couple of your private schools like your Wesley and that already have that set up. Obviously that's an all boys school, but is it? Pretty sure I've got no idea. I think it is. Anyway, so they've started to do that. I know my school, Emmanuel, got a gym a couple of years ago. So, you know, at least that's there for them to access. So I think, definitely if schools can kind of get on board and have obviously a proper structured thing run by a strength and conditioning coach, then that's where it probably has to start, because otherwise, like local clubs or whatever, junior clubs don't have the money to do that. And I suppose, that's something we were talking about at work, is something like, you know, could we go down to clubs and hire ourselves out? But then it's like, well, we're going to get paid like nothing for that. But I think it definitely has to start at school. Yeah. And you have to have your male sport and then your female. Like you have to have a female stream sport. You can't just have like girls coming in to train. No, and you can't. We could do it. Maybe do that, run it as a phys ed class. Or I think so. Have an actual proper, like you can pick electives at high school. Yeah, but then you're obviously missing a gap, and then you're obviously missing out on schoolwork and stuff as well. But I think without segregating them too much, you definitely have to integrate that and make it like a safe kind of space, because I think that's probably the biggest issue that we're finding at work. Like girls just get a little bit intimidated by the setting. Obviously not everyone's like that. Like I never had an issue, and I would assume most of my teammates I've ever played with probably never had an issue, but like, you know, the broader society, it's not always the most not welcoming, but can be really intimidating, which is all squat racks, barbells, things like that. So just got to change that little bit of a cultural stigma, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy. Because I never thought, because I don't know, probably me being a bit naive, never really thought like just, you know, you just kind of go and lift weights. Like, what's the difference between a guy and a girl? Like lifting a barbell, you know, like there shouldn't be a difference, right?
There isn't a difference really, but I think, like
perception and
the perception of it. Yeah. Like, I mean, one of my friends, so she's not like an athlete per se, but she told me the other day, she's